innovate, enable.
Forbes India and ServiceNow present the COO Collective.
Hello and welcome to Forbes India and ServiceNow present the COO Collective. Now there is a paradigm shift in the entire landscape of customer service taking place with a radical change in consumer behavior and expectations. Today, businesses are interacting with consumers using advanced technologies such as intelligent assistants, AI-powered bots, and augmented reality. So it's safe to say that what appeared to be a fantasy is today's reality. Businesses are moving from a traditional product-centric strategy to one that focuses more on the customer. They are being pushed beyond the tenets and philosophy of customer experience. And of course, this is now the business of experience. In the Curtain Raiser episode of the COO Collective, we put a spotlight on how the business of experience can be a more holistic approach that allows organizations to become customer obsessed and reignite growth. On that note, let me welcome our panelists. Joining us are Sumit Mathur, Vice President and Country Head at ServiceNow, Sanjeev Singh, COO at Wipro, and Aurobindo Nanda, who's the President of Operations and Deputy CEO for Product Engineering Services at Happiest Minds. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Indeed, we've come a long way so far, but there's many miles more to go. So we've come from CX to the business of experience now. It's built on the foundational principles of CX, the business of experience, but it also involves a significant change in mindset. Right. So I want to understand first from you, Sanjeev and Nandan, how you go about evangelizing this to your clients. So your thoughts on this first.
Yeah, thanks Gautam, thanks for having me. You know, as you rightly said, the most important thing about moving from CX or customer experience to business of experience or BX is putting the customer at the center of the universe, as against keeping your product or service at the center of how you design the process. And the way we look at things in our organization is that in our organization, as an employee, you can belong to one of the two groups. One, you could be someone who is adding value for the customer, or you have to be someone who is adding value for someone who is adding value for the customer. And therefore, I think the focus has to be not only on people who are adding value for the customer directly, but as important to ensure that people who are supporting those employees also get supported and are seen as customers internally within the organization. And that requires you to look at things very differently. You have to design the operating processes accordingly. Your delivery models have to be done accordingly. Your experience mechanisms have to be developed accordingly, and so on. And keeping that in mind, at least in our organization, we have, on very similar lines, we have, a 4M model of delivering services to our customers, and 4M stands for nothing but model, method, machinery, and mindset, exactly the point that you made. So that's really how we look at it. But the most important thing, keep the customer at the center of everything. You design your processes right, and you move from CX to BX.
All right. Nanda, your thoughts on this, managing this transition, what goes into it? How do you evangelize the move to BX from CX?
Thanks, Gautam. Thanks for having me here. Very interesting question. And adding to what Sanjeev said, obviously the customer has to be at the center of everything. But what we kind of evangelize within the organization is how do we understand our customers' business so that we understand the customers that they are servicing, and hence we go about adding more value to it. That would mean also understanding the customers' pain points, what they are facing on a day-to-day basis, what kind of data is our customer collecting about their customers, and kind of working around that data to create or to analyze and come up with new service lines or new value propositions which we can then take to our customers. So that's we kind of internalize and evangelize with them. And all our internal training or internal programs are geared towards all these initiatives.
All right. Focus on the customer and any context of enabling positive value work around it. Let me bring that into you, Sumit, the points that Sanjeev and Nanda have raised, and especially this whole idea of, supporting actors also know that when the mainstream is working towards the customer, they are also working to the customer's benefit. So from an organizational perspective, how does the entire organization itself gear up for customer service? What are your thoughts on that?
No, thank you, Gautam, for that. I'll start by statistics I recently read that said 50% of consumers do not believe that the companies that they're taking the service from are serious in solving their issues. And you and I can resonate with that, right? Because if you have an issue today and you call a toll-free number or you send an email, many times you are routed multiple times to different support engineers, different departments within the organization. Your time to resolution gets reset. It's just a frustrating experience. And the reason that happens is because companies have not invested to build a unifying customer experience across the front office to the back office, right? And that is why you have started to see that customer service and customer experience is no longer a priority only for a chief marketing officer or a chief sales officer. It's been elevated to the board of directors or a CEO based priority, so that the entire company's organization's power can be harnessed towards bringing that customer as the center of the universe, as Sanjeev was alluding to earlier, right? From a technology perspective, this requires changes in the thinking and the mindset and the implementation of the technology in the environment today, right? I believe that companies need to invest on a single unifying platform that helps them digitize the business process end to end, breaking the silos within the organization, right? Connecting different departments, connecting employees to customers, and automating the workflows so that the customer centricity can be at the heart of not just the customer facing organization, but the entire company as a whole.
Absolutely. That's the power of one to deliver value to customers. And gauging by the conversation we had so far, BX seems to be the amalgamation of people, process, technology, and culture. So Sanjeev, taking it forward, what are the benchmarks for operational excellence in this regard to drive BX? What are your thoughts on that?
So see, Gautam, as far as the operational excellence part is concerned, I think there are two sides to it. I mean, there is, which is not very different from how we run it through our 4M model. As I said, it's model, machinery, mindset, and so on. Similarly, when you look at operational excellence internally within the organization, you've got to be able to run the internal processes in a very streamlined manner, because you have people who are trying to serve the customer. So you have to treat internal people as customers as well. And that's where you have got to be able to streamline the processes and create a much better quality of experience for your own employees. Be it the quality of onboarding, right? I mean, you onboard new employees every day. You have the talent supply chain processes, you have invoicing process, you have all kinds of processes, right? How do you ensure that you have very streamlined processes which makes employees feel very good about it? Because if they are happy and satisfied, that is how they pass on the same level of satisfaction to the customer on the other side. So again, from the operational excellence perspective, we've got to be able to take care of what is touching the customer directly, which is people, process, technology, and the culture. And then you have to be able to look at it from the internal perspective, and that's all about streamlining the internal process.
That's highly important because you reduce the friction points when it comes to the inside of the enterprise, and it leaves bandwidth enough free for the employees to actually take care of their customers. A very valid point. But let's also talk about the funding part of this, because like I said, it's not a retrofit, it's an overhaul. So obviously there is going to be money, there's going to be investment involved. So in terms of funding this transition, Nanda, how do organizations go about it? The transition to BX, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, when Sanjeev said, and you kind of summarized it, it frees up bandwidth of a lot of people to do other things. So when you really look at it, when you are trying to bring in the business of experience, It's always about the final ROI that you are going to deliver. So you are enabling your customers, or you are enabling servicing to your customers more with something less. And that's where the bandwidth is getting created. Now, that particular bandwidth is getting created as a certain budget associated with it. So you need to look at how do I create that budget, how that ROI gets delivered, and hence that necessarily gets created. We have seen this across all different functions, be it the sales functions, be it the engineering functions, or be it your other supporting functions that comes in. Take, for example, if you are doing a lot of automation in your engineering functions, a lot of bandwidth is getting created, and that is nothing but translating into budgets. Now you can move those budgets elsewhere. Similarly, with the newer way of reaching out to your customers, you are creating or enabling a lot more sales to happen automatically, right? You don't need feet on the ground to have those kind of sales. In a similar manner, your sales functions can be then diverted to doing something more creative or something more different. So this has to be looked in the sense which functions are going to get impacted by it, what is the ROI getting delivered, and hence those budgets get created and those functions start utilizing those budgets for something better.
Absolutely. And to put that into context, for a lot of our viewers who are watching, many of whom are leaders who are, say, sold on the concept of BX, but want to understand its true impact on the top line and bottom line. Nanda gave us an overview on the impact on functions and therefore the impact on customers. Sumit, I want you to take us through, the top line and bottom line impact of doing BX right. Your thoughts on this?
I think when an organization starts with an experience first mindset, there's obvious financial benefits, right? But beyond just the financial benefits, right? If you look at a balanced scorecard of an organization, you can go to newer markets and harness newer customer base, right? Because you're putting the customer first. And when you're putting the customer first, it's not only your customers as you see it, it's also your partners, your third-party providers, the entire ecosystem, and that helps you to go to newer markets and new customers. It helps you to get faster ROI in the sense that, because for you to be able to do experience first, you have to connect and automate your various different business processes, and that leads to higher ROI. Obviously, it leads to better customer retention, customer quality, NPS scores, etc., right? But I also want to take a minute and Gautam and talk about why does there apparent bottom line and top line growth when you go with experience first model. And the reason is experience breeds trust, and a positive experience breeds positive trust, right? And you obviously have the customers getting a lot more benefited, right, with a better experience. But the pandemic has shown to us, all our leaders here on the panel would kind of attest to that employee experience has also become a critical ingredient for the success of our organizations, right? And when employers are happy, there was a Gallup survey that's pointed out that a higher engaging employee base increases your revenue by almost 20% higher, right? And that adds to your bottom line as well as your top line, because your operational costs are less, your employee retention is more. So just the flywheel effect of that, a happy employee serving a happy potential customer, just exponentially increases, right? Absolutely. So it's not just the financial results, there's a lot going on with this experience first business model that helps organizations.
All right, on that note, we'll take a very short break here on the COO Collective, but stay tuned, lots more coming up.
The COO Collective.
Welcome back to the COO Collective Curtain Raiser episode, where we are talking about the business of experience. Let's dive right back in. All right, Sanjeev, let's bring it together to talk about BX techniques. Right. What would you like to share on this regard?
Yeah. See, Gautam, just a few things. I think couple of things that we've got to be careful about in terms of creating the right BX. One is, as we spoke, it's about obsession for the customer. The other one is, I think, investment into creating the right innovation for experience of the customers. In fact, if you just look at how we get served today, right? I mean, how we get served from Kirana supplies perspective, or how we book a cab today and how we make payments today, it's very different from what we did, just 5 and 10 years back. So there has to be a constant innovation to create the right kind of customer experience. So the whole innovation piece is very important. And the third one I would say is aligning goals of employees and people to the right outcomes. That's very important, because culturally, if people are not aligned to the end outcome of creating the right experience of the customer, right? If that mindset and culture is not there, you can do whatever, you will not get the right result. And you know, I mean, I was, you know, to prepare for this session, I was reading a book yesterday. And you know, I came across an example which resonated with me very well. You know, Ritz-Carlton hotel chain, they have a policy, any employee is completely empowered to solve a problem for a customer by taking any decision they want. They need no approvals. It does not matter what they decide to resolve, you know, the issue that their customer might be facing. So, you know, I mean, you've aligned the employees so very well with the end outcome that the whole organization gets aligned. So I don't know if every organization can go to that an extent, but the whole people alignment to the outcome is a very important aspect.
Growth. On that note, let's get you know, the last rounds of advice from all of you, for all those viewers who are watching, on how organizations can successfully rethink business and operational models when we talk about BX. How can they go about it? Words of advice. Nanda, we'll start with you.
Customer obsessiveness, obviously, that has to be number one as to how do we build in. We may be talking about it. Most of the time it kind of stays in the boardroom or a couple of levels below. But if you have to really transcend into at all levels, it is very, very important as to how do you go about doing it. So that will be number one. Number two in my list will be is, while we talk about this, how do you measure it in certain way and kind of put accountability that it is actually happening. So that will be number two in my list as to how do we go about doing it. And while saying all of this, we also have to internally bring in the right set of technologies and training to the people so they can do the above too. Because without those investments coming in, you know, it will just remain as a talk.
They're all parts of an
Yes.
equation. All right. Sumit, your thoughts, rethinking business to enable sustained growth. Your words of advice.
Absolutely. So I've got a couple as well. So the first one is, now I'll start with an example, right? If you're in a restaurant business, it's not just the waiter who's serving, who's providing that customer experience. It's the chef at the kitchen. His work is impacting the customer experience. It's the operations guy who bought the vegetables and the quality of those vegetables in the morning. That's going to impact the customer experience, right? So in an organization, identifying the business processes end to end that impacts the customer and ensuring you digitize them and you have a way to measure them, right? That's number one, right? The number two would be what I call it innovation through collaboration. Because organizations have become so complicated, they're not going to their customers all by themselves. They're going it through partners, third parties, suppliers, etc., right? You need to provide a platform where all of them are connected together so they can innovate through collaboration to bring more value to the customer. So innovation through collaboration would be my second one. And my third one would be, while we have talked a lot about experience, I want to put an adjective on top of it that says frictionless experience. You can provide an experience, but it needs to be frictionless. There are 2 points that come to mind to me on that one. One is providing more and more self-service to the customer, so that I can solve my own problems without calling you or writing an email to you. And the second one would be around ensuring that what we call, you know, digitizing the process so that it is not only self-service, but it is able to detect customer problems much in advance before the customer calls in, right? And we have technology now available where if you implement it properly, you can do this proactive checks on the customer problems that will impact your net promoter score in the future.
That's the magic of customer experience, right? As they say, any advanced science is indistinguishable from magic. And when that customer has that experience that, oh, this enterprise knows me better than myself and has anticipated my needs, there is going to be the possibility of a longer.
3 suggestions. I mean, I'm going back to the original point, which is keep customer at the center and not your product or service. I mean, just to take an example, right? I mean, I'm just going back to Kirana supply, to into our homes. Everyone supplies exactly the same thing, but you still prefer one vendor versus the other because the overall experience someone is able to provide, whether that is through the speed of delivery or the experience you have on the app or whatever, that could be different. So keep customer at the center. That is rule number one. The second one, not easy. It's not sufficient to have a good intent. I mean, everyone has a good intent, right? It is all about how you are able to convert that good intent into solid operational excellence, right? We talked about people, process, culture, technology, and so on, or the 4M methodology that we follow. That is the toughest part, and the teams have to really spend a disproportionate amount of time to get the whole logistics and the whole process right. And the third one, very simple, it's very subtle. You have to treat your employees as if they are your customers. At the end of the day, you cannot have an unhappy employee serving the customer well. So if we take care of these three things, I think we are in a good spot.
A happy customer is a happy enterprise, as we said. And of course, welcome to the era of BX, where the possibilities are immense, as it has been outlined by our panelists, and the impact is on people, technology, process, and more importantly, culture. Well, on that note, it's time to conclude this curtain raiser episode of the COO Collective. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for sharing with us your insights and experiences and lessons on the business of experience. And of course, thank you to our viewers for tuning in. Till next time, this is your host Gautam Srinivasan signing off. Have a great day.
Forbes India and ServiceNow present the COO Collective.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.